What's up, guys? My name is Jake. Welcome to Abandoned, episode 29. This is the show where we talk about some of the most interesting abandoned places in the world. Vacationing in the beautiful Cocoa Beach, Florida sees tens of thousands of tourists each year. That might be because of its close proximity to Port Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center. Port Canaveral itself brings through millions of cruise passengers each year. The small city is also home to a very infamous and iconic abandoned building. Just off North Orlando Avenue sits the Glass Bank. Way back in the 60s, NASA's popularity on the coast was quickly growing, and with the economic growth of Cape Canaveral, nearby Cocoa Beach was urbanizing and expanding in its population by over 120% from the previous 20 years. With the growth came urbanization and modernization, with brand new buildings being added to the city's increasing number of unique structures. In development was a glass multi-purpose commercial building. The structure was designed by a Harvard architectural graduate, and in 1960, construction started on the new ultra-modern structure. Construction continued throughout 1961, and in April of 1962, the first Federal Savings and Loan Association of COCO opened to the public. Of course, though, the futuristic modern design of the building would have local residents calling it the Glass Bank. It acted as a multi-purpose commercial building, and housed something called the Sky Room Restaurant, which offered 360-degree views of Cocoa Beach from the top floor. An outdoor terrace surrounding the restaurant allowed guests to watch missions from the Apollo, Space Shuttle, and other launches from Cape Canaveral, which was only around 8 miles away. The restaurant and terrace would also offer great unobstructed views of the beach, which was less than 1,000 feet from the building. However, the Glass Bank did begin to show some flaws in its design just a year into the building being open. You would think the flaws would come from the massive sheets of glass surrounding the structure, but nope. It actually came from the 5th floor restaurant not having a dedicated elevator. So guests that wanted to go to the restaurant would need to enter the building and take the building's internal elevators and stop on different floors before they reached the top floor restaurant. A new sort of abrupt express elevator was constructed on the north side of the building, and a new restaurant called Raymond's Rainbow Room took the space. This took the sought-after top floor and featured a restaurant and a nightclub which catered to the era it was in. The restaurant became very famous and helped amplify the Glass Bank into an icon of the Florida Space Coast. However, despite its initial popularity, by the late 60s, the restaurant was beginning to slow down, along with the space program. The top floor restaurant was changed from Raymond's Rainbow Room to Marby's Rainbow Room in 1970. However, by 1972, the new restaurant had closed permanently. Things for the Glass Bank continued to get worse when the 80s savings and loans crisis began to take its toll. The building's original primary tenant, First Federal, had closed its doors, and the Glass Bank had lost its original tenant 20 years into its existence. In 1981, a Cocoa Beach resident and attorney, Frank Wolf, had purchased the top floor of the building formerly of the Rainbow Room restaurant. And with Frank's new purchase, he made major modifications to the exterior of the building. The massive glass sheets which surrounded the seemingly freestanding interior were divided now by stucco and concrete. While yes, the design was sort of common for the 80s, it looked substantially worse than it did in its previous all-glass state. Bizarrely, Frank Wolf had decided to build a windowless 2-story penthouse on the top of the Glass Bank. It gets even more bizarre once you go inside this apartment, because not only can it get any more 80s than this, but once you travel up the former restaurant express elevator, you are transported into what looks like a Bass Pro Shop from 1978. Seriously, once you enter into the foyer, you are greeted by a fake footbridge surrounded by a waterfall, rocks, and fake plants. The majority of the penthouse was covered with wood paneling and had features of the era throughout. Perhaps the most bizarre part of the apartment is the 2-story loft living room. It featured 4 curved sunken sofas and a fireplace made from stone rocks in the shape of mountains, which extended to the far side of each wall. On either side of the fireplace, there were fake bushes which were illuminated by Christmas lights. Above the mountain, there were fake clouds that scaled all the way to the wood-paneled ceiling. The bathroom continued with soft curves, gold countertops, a sunken spa, and of course, carpet throughout. and the master bedroom was only accessible by crawling through a padded tunnel. This whole addition to the building made the glass bank appear to have a massive concrete box on the top. And, well, it kinda did. The glass bank now looked pretty different from its original sleek 60s design. As years passed, the building saw a few different tenants come in and out of the rentable spaces. By 2004, the building did have a few tenants still using the space, including a bank and a gym. As August through October of the same year came around though, Florida and especially the Florida coast were hit by several severe hurricanes. Some of the most powerful since 1964, and some were just within weeks of each other. When the glass bank's exterior was changed, the added concrete and stucco were added to strengthen the building in the event of a strong storm. The amount of damage these storms took on the building though were just too devastating. The damage also revealed another problem, which was a result of the building's construction methods in the era, and that was the exposure to asbestos. As a result of the damage and health concerns, all of the tenants had vacated the building. However, the windowless penthouse was practically untouched and safe from any damage inflicted by the storms, and Frank Wolf intended to continue to live in his unique apartment. As soon as all the tenants had vacated the building, the glass bank had become abandoned. Frank Wolf was now living on top of a rotting, decaying structure. By 2006 though, the building was doing rather well in terms of interior decay, as the majority of the ground floor's large windows were still intact. As years progressed, the building had continued to decay further, with hurricanes battering the crippled glass enclosed structure. However, by 2010, the owners of the bottom portion did continue to try to upkeep the building as much as possible by placing boards over the broken windows. Meanwhile, Cocoa Beach city officials took some of the first public pictures inside the widely secretive penthouse. Ownership to the building was a little mixed. A man named Joseph Yosifon owned the first, second, fifth, and half of the fourth floor. The other half of the fourth floor was owned by Frank Wolf, and a financial company owned the third floor, making all of them have different controlling stakes in the building. As the bottom structure sat abandoned, fines from the building began piling up. Despite all of the efforts to comply with the city's regulations to the exterior appearance of the building, Cocoa Beach would continue to fine the building for such minor things as using the wrong type of plywood to fill holes. Hope for the future of the iconic structure were high, and the building's owners were continuing to push for new economic developments. Plans to severely revamp the exterior of the building were made, however ultimately fell through. According to Joseph, there was high interest for tenants to come in, use the space, and fix up the building. However, it was prohibited by the city under fire concerns, among other fines.
When I had Space Cross Credit Union as a tenant with a 15-year lease, they went to get an occupational license, and the city would not issue an occupational license for a bank where a bank was there since 1964.
It didn't help that Frank Wolf continuously denied being part of the commercial building below, since he had his own hydro, water, and gas to his penthouse above. This resulted in a lawsuit filed by Joseph, claiming that he should be paying condo fees. By 2013, fines were surpassing $100,000 for the glass bank's owners, and Frank Wolf's weren't any better. By this time, an in-ground fence now bordered the structure's property. The city and local residents wanted the building gone, and while Joseph was at first reluctant to allow this to happen, he ultimately agreed to let the city demolish the glass bank. Frank Wolf, however, was going to fight for his penthouse. His case was that if the city wants to demolish the building his penthouse is resting on, then the city of Cocoa Beach is going to need to buy the apartment. However, the city was not going to pay what they thought was an unrealistic market price for the penthouse. So the battle to keep his penthouse continued. In summer of 2013, Frank had temporarily moved to Maine, where he had been visiting his family for around 6 months. While he was gone, by 2014, with Wolf out of the state and his fines well over $1 million, on February 4th, 2014, a judge had ruled against him. The next day, Frank Wolf had committed suicide from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. His body was found at the base of the glass bank. Frank Wolf was 82 years old, had been suffering from multiple health issues, and had lived by himself in his penthouse. Just 2 months later, the city had struck a deal to demolish the glass bank, and with the initial interior asbestos removal completed, towards the end of the year, demolition began on the structure, and by mid-February of 2015, the entire structure was gone. The once shining modern icon of Cocoa Beach which saw over 42 years of use, only to spend its last 11 years abandoned and decaying. The land to the former glass bank now sits vacant and up for sale. As of late 2016, the lot is covered by grass, and there are currently no public plans for any new developments. It is sad to see such an icon go, however many saw it as an eyesore after 2004, and some might even say the same after its exterior changes in the 80s. It was an architectural icon and piece of history for the city of Cocoa Beach. Anyway guys, my name is Jake. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat, and thank you very much for watching.
Yeah.